Gente, bienvenidos
Let
y
me begin
bienvenidas al
once again.
webinar del Día
Welcome
Mundial Sin Tabaco
to this
2026 de la industria
Unmasking
tabacalera y
Tactics of
nicotina.
the Tobacco
Mi
and
nombre
Nicotine
es Gustavo
Industries.
Zóñora,
My name
soy
is
director regional para
Gustavo
América
Soñora,
Latina
and I'm
en
the
el
Regional
Departamento
Director
de
for
Control de
Latin
Tabaco de
America
Vital
at the
Strategies
Tobacco
y hoy
Control
tengo el
Department in
honor
Vital
de
Strategies,
moderar
and today
este
it is my
espacio.
honor to moderate
Este
this event.
webinar es convocado
This
por
webinar
Vital
is
Strategies,
convened by Vital
Corporate
Strategies,
Accountability,
Corporate
Campaign for
Accountability,
Tobacco Free Kids y la
Campaign for
Organización
Tobacco
Panamericana de
Free
la
Kids,
Salud,
and
Organización Mundial de la
PAHO
Salud. Les
WHO.
agradecemos a todas
We
las
thank
organizaciones
all
y
of the
personas que se han
organizations and
conectados
individuals
desde
who have
distintos
joined us
puntos de la región.
from different
En el
places
Día
in the region.
Mundial Mascarar
Is
el
calling us to
atractivo de los
unmask
productos de
the
tabaco
appeal
y
of
nicotina.
tobacco and nicotine
Hoy vamos a
products.
hablar de estrategias
Today, we will
y
discuss the
cómo la industria
strategies
tabacalera
the
usa
industry
para llegar
uses
especialmente a jóvenes y
to
capturar
especially
nuevos
target
consumidores
young
y
people
cómo la sociedad
and
civil está
attract new
respondiendo o
consumers,
qué
as well as
herramienta
how
tenemos
civil
para
society is
fortalecer
responding and what
la
tools we
acción
have to
regulatoria en las
strengthen
Américas.
regulatory action in the
Antes de
Americas.
proseguir, algunos recordatorios
Before we
logísticos.
begin,
La
let me
sesión se
go
realizará
over
en
some
español
housekeeping
con
announcements. This
traducción
session will be
simultánea al
conducted in
inglés.
Spanish.
Q y
Using
A,
the
Question and
Q
Answer,
and
están
A
en
icon
su pantalla
that you
y las
see on your
retomaremos
screen,
al
and
finalizar
we will
este
address them
webinar.
towards
La
the end of
sesión
the
está
webinar.
siendo grabada.
This session is being
Dicho
recorded.
esta introducción, entonces pasemos al
Having said
bloque
this,
número 1.
let's move on
Día
to
Mundial Sin
Block
Tabaco
1, World
2026,
No Tobacco
marco
Day
y llamado
2026,
global, a
framework and
cargo de
global call
Diana
to
Cerón
action.
Díaz
And
de
for
la
that, we're going to hear
Organización
from
Panamericana
Diana
de la
Cerón
Salud.
Diaz from the Pan
Diana
American
Cerón
Health Organization.
es
Diana
actualmente
Cerón
asesora
is
regional en control
currently
de tabaco de la
regional
Organización Panamericana de la Salud
person
y
in charge
explicará
of
el marco
tobacco
regional en
policies
control
for
de
PAHO, and
tabaco
she
y el
will go
llamado
over the
global
regional
fundamental para
framework for tobacco
contextualizar
control,
dónde nos encontramos
and
hoy
she
en
will
la
provide
región.
us
Cedo la palabra
a
a Diana
general
Cerón.
background
Adelante,
to have an
Diana.
idea of where we are in tobacco control in the region. Go ahead, Diana. Can you hear me now? My name is Diana Cerón Diaz. I'm a regional advisor for tobacco control at PAHO, and today I will briefly talk about this 2026 World No Tobacco Day, a regional overlook on tobacco control. The the theme for this year is Unmasking Appeal Countering Tobacco and Nicotine Addiction, and it has three main objectives. The first one is to raise awareness, including the use of synthetic nicotine salts, and similar products to increase addiction protection in the region. The second objective is to advocate for stronger policy action to protect our youth through ban of flavors, advertising, and promotion, including digital and social media marketing, and regulation of packaging and product design, among others. And finally, prevent addiction and encourage topic and nicotine use cessation by equipping the public, especially the youth, with the knowledge, tools, and information to resist this industry manipulation, as well as access evidence-based cessation support. Here we can see a snapshot of the material that we have developed for this year campaign. They are all available on our website. I will kindly ask my it's the concern that we have about the increasing use of new and emerging tobacco and nicotine products among youth. For example, we see that e-cigarettes among teenagers is 9 times higher as in adults. And here I'm going to also leave you with one of the videos that we developed for this campaign. Tobacco and nicotine products are designed to be addictive. All of these is available on our website, and you can use them throughout the year until next year's World No Tobacco Day. And now I'm going to talk about the tobacco epidemic data. First of all, there's an estimated 40 million adolescents aged 13 to 15 that use at least one tobacco product. Out of those, 14.7 million are in the region. Out of these 14.7 million, 2 million are in the region. Unfortunately, tobacco continues to kill people and having high cost in our global economy. For example, in the Americas, it accounts for 4.3% of our annual GDP. We also know that 14% of adults, that is to say, people age 15 and over, also use tobacco, and 9.3 currently use tobacco. We also know that there's an estimated 2.6 million adolescents that use conventional cigarettes, and like I said, 2 million use e-cigarettes. The increasing use of these new and emerging tobacco nicotine products is a big concern in the region. And then, when faced with this situation, we know that some significant progress has been made, especially in terms of tobacco smoke-free environments and the issue of health warnings that cover at least 50% of the main tobacco company packaging designs. We still have a lot to go, especially three in terms of the total ban on advertising, promotion, and sponsorship. This TAPS status, and increasingly member states have adopted tobacco ban products, which includes nicotine replacement treatment options, hotline numbers to support these services, costs that are covered for these services, etc. We also see that out of the four actions that we implemented, four of the five best buys to prevent non-communicable diseases. The fifth one, as we see here, is we see that unfortunately only three of our member states are implementing these actions, which they are the ones in green, which means that they have taxes that account for at least 75% of the cost of each package. When faced with this, the industry adapts its strategies, and currently they are introducing a wide range of products as innovations, quote unquote, innovations, to attract children and youth. And like we said, they use strategies such as the use of flavors, um, additives to mask the nicotine flavor and disseminate these products among this sector of the population. Another important issue in the region is the feminization of this tobacco epidemic. Men and women, for example, when we look at the adult population, there is a difference between men. However, this difference between men and women among the youth disappears. What does this mean? That more and more young women start using more tobacco almost to the same extent as men. And this reflects the marketing strategies the industry has launched. For example, the use of flavors of young women and the use of messages to manipulate them towards using these products. For example, here on this slide, we can see this campaign that targets young women specifically. And one thing that I wanted to mention is that these are not strategies. This is something the industry has learned from the past that used to use for traditional products such as cigarettes. Well, they do the same now, but with e-cigarettes. The same goes for sponsoring sports events such as F1 that we can see in this example. Another emerging product that is a concern is nicotine pouches. And pouch industry uses to deliver its products to the market. This report was launched on May 14th, and I would kindly ask my colleagues to um, include the website so that you can access to the recording. You can see here that a lot of the tactics and marketing strategies that are also used for these other products. What makes it different? That in these products they are using the strategy of having discrete packaging. Why? Because they want to promote discrete using among the young people in areas such as schools, areas that are already small. The use of nicotine. This is very unfortunate because it goes against a very significant global effort that was made thanks to smoke-free areas. So these new products seek to go back in this huge progress that was made in terms of tobacco control. When faced with this, there are two regulatory pathways. On the one hand, we have a ban on marketing of these nicotine pouches, as we can do with other new and emerging tobacco and nicotine products. And on the other hand, the implementation of the Empower package to regulate nicotine pouches, as well as other actions and mandates that are included in the Framework Convention for Tobacco Control. All of this is evidence-based. All these regulatory pathways are based on evidence and is included in the ninth report of the WHO. And we can see that in our region, we also see a significant number of member states that have chosen to either ban the marketing or regulate the sale, distribution, and advertising of these products. But there are still 11 member states that have taken no regulatory action, neither with nicotine management product or heated tobacco products. So we still have lot to do in the region. So when faced with this World No Tobacco Day campaign appeals to the decision makers to ban flavors, to make, to regulate product design, to work on reduce appeal of plain packaging, ban advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, also make tobacco and nicotine-free public places, support quitting services to break the cycle, because we want these products to be less affordable for children, adolescents, and the youth, and therefore make them less accessible. This is all from me. There's a series of technical resources that you can find on this World No Tobacco Day campaign website, where you can see more information on what I have talked about this morning. And I would also like to invite you to visit the WNTD website, also the economics of NCDs, healthy taxes, and many others that I'm sure you're familiar with. And let me play a final video from this campaign. Thank you very much. And now I give the floor to Rosa Sandoval, Tobacco Control Advisor and the Economics of NCDs at PAHO. Thank you very much. And Rosa, the floor is yours. Good morning, colleagues, and greetings from Washington, D.C. Greetings to the almost 300 participants at the Pan American Health Organization to share with you the awardees in the Americas for this year. Each year, as you know, the Pan American Health Organization gives these awards to people or institutions that have made a significant contribution to the advancement of policies and action on tobacco control aligned with the framework Convention on Tobacco Control. So the awardees are selected based on the nominations that are received from all around the world. This is a public invitation that is sent globally. And Dr. Cristina Lustenberg from Uruguay, Public Health Minister. She is being recognized for her leadership and commitment to reinforce the historic role Uruguay has played in tobacco control globally. She is supported by court decisions, and her administration banned measures on neutral packaging and reinstated the ban on marketing of heated tobacco products. Dr. Ludenberg also played a significant and active role globally. He was a participant in COP11 and MOP4 to strengthen the implementation of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, as well as so congratulations to Dr. Ludenberg. Monica Andres, Brazil. Monica has been one of the most influencing leaders for tobacco control in Brazil throughout her 20 years of professional career. Monica's career that started as a co-founder of ACD, Promoción da Saúde, has been characterized by her leadership in implementing the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, including her key role in the historic landmark for tobacco-free areas in São Paulo in 2009, which later on became a model for national policy. More recently, Monica has played a significant role in fostering CSOs to work on an increase in health taxes and work for the tax reform in Brazil. Congratulations to Monica. Minister of Agriculture and Family Agriculture in Brazil. This ministry has showed commitment and leadership in the reinstatement and strengthening of the national policy and national plan on alternatives for our arable land based on Article 17 and 18 of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. This policy is a multi-sectoral policy that's implemented through an interagency collaboration led by the Ministry social, economic, and environmental challenges posed by tobacco crops. So congratulations to the Ministry of Agricultural Development and in Brazil. Dr. Inti Barrientos from Mexico. Inti is a renowned researcher on tobacco control that focuses on developing scientific evidence to support public policies. As a medical science researcher at the National Institute of Public Health in Mexico, he has studied and the study of electronic nicotine delivery products, heated products, and he documented its appeal among the youth and the impact in use patterns. His research work is closely related in which highlights the strategies used by the tobacco nicotine industry to appeal to the youth. Congratulations, Indy. Daniel Dorado, who's here by my side. Daniel, please join. Daniel Dorado from Colombia. Daniel represents a new generation of leaders in tobacco control in the region. His work is supported on the principles of the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, and it focuses on unmasking the tobacco industry strategies. As director for the um, Corporate Accountability Tobacco campaign, Daniel has coordinated 4 editions of the industry interference in Latin America and worked to implement Article 5.3 of the interference. Daniel has been key in civil society work trying to reach consensus in the conference of the parties, and I can see that he's a great collaborator with Tahoe. Thank you very much, Daniel, and congratulations. And since Daniel is, I will give his certificate to him, which says World No Tobacco Day, May 31st, 2026. The Pan American Health Organization gives this certificate to Mr. Daniel Dorado, Director of the Tobacco Contribution to Tobacco Control, signed by our director. And I will also give him his medal. And congratulations. And if you would like, you can say a few words. Good morning. A warm welcome to everyone, and my most sincere appreciation to the Pan American Health Organization and the World Health Organization. Thank you to Rosa, Diana, and of course, the entire team that joins us today. For for me, there's never enough time to say everything, but one of the reasons that I cannot overlook mentioning today is the framework in which I'm receiving this award, which is the 10 years since my father passed. My father died on May 31st, 2016, and coincidentally, that is the World No Tobacco Day. His fight, directly or indirectly, has made me the person I am today. And I believe that a lot of the ideals that he stood for are reflected in the region of the Americas. Latin America, and of course, the countries that very proudly, excuse me, I might say I represent Colombia, my home. I would now like to mention three ideas that I have thought about a lot, and I'm sure I'm leaving a lot out, but whatever I neglect to say is not intentional, but I would like to deeply thank all of the people that made it possible for all of us to be here today. Having said this, you know what it means to me, what belonging to this region means, not only because of the Pan American Health Organization. Can talk about two heads from the Framework Convention, Dr. Diana Marquizo and Dr. Vera Luisa da Costa Silva. We can talk about leaders, both men and women, that are at the COP Bureau, Dr. Reina Roa, Dr. Marcos Grota, as well as those who are currently in those positions, such as Brazil, Uruguay, Mexico, Canada. But I also want to recognize CSO, which I am here representing, Barrentos from Mexico. All three of us are acknowledged this year, but this acknowledgement has been present for many years, and these are the ties that bring us together. And this is what I want to highlight today, what we are as civil society, because this enables us to be uh, envied by many regions. And I say envied because they want to copy what we are. When we get a message at any time of the day or a phone call, we're always there to support and help and continue growing. And there are also people that have had a lot of influence in my career, such as Dr. Eduardo Bianco, for having trusted me, and also my my colleague, my partner in crime, Severin, to support the region in moving towards the tobacco control for in represent representing the Americas. Also, the young voices, we have a spot, and Janela and I have worked for this to happen. So I would like to thank a lot of the panelists that we can see here, Gustavo, Patricia, who have opened the doors to. I don't want to forget my organization, Corporate Accountability, and the trust they bestow upon me. And also Jaime Arcila, my my right hand and accomplice, and who for the past 10 years plus has been by my side. And all of these acknowledgments also include their families. And I want to thank my family, my beloved wife, Maria Jose, whom I'm going to see briefly, but I'm sure she's listening in. Thank you for your patience. Oftentimes, it means that something to show for it. I want you to know what this community does for public health. Now, in terms of where we are, I always say that these awards go hand in hand with a pause to reflect. In this case, a 20th year for the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. Even though 20 years may sound like not a whole lot, it is a lot for an international instrument that shows that it works. I'm not going to go into the technical details because Diana already talked about what it has done and continues to do for the region, especially with the Empower tool, but also to see how we resist the tobacco years take us to something that happened last year, COP11. And why am I mentioning this? That Conference of the Parties was historic. And when we're faced with so many global challenges, we must remember a few things. The COP enabled us to adopt historic decisions in terms of the environment and measures that go beyond the Framework Convention in terms of accountability. But we also had some pending challenges, for example, the issue of regulation or how to approach these new emerging topics, and of course, the increasing interference from the industry, which was very, very visible in that international meeting. This year, we don't have a conference which reinforces the call to countries, to civil society organizations to continue to work. And with this, I would like to ask Pajo to continue playing this leadership role and also continue building bridges between CSOs and governments to try to get to a COP in 2020. What's next? I would like to pick up on something uh, that led me to thank all of these people that I mentioned before because they reinforce my commitment. But let me tell you, there's a youth organization, CREA, that was very generous with a public release and some social media posts. And I believe that I don't deserve this much, but I would like to say what they said is just to continue adding voices, especially from the youth. The youth were very present in 2026 in that CO voices that will give us the strength to continue resisting resisting the industry interference. The industry is scared to death about what we can do, and I'm sure that this will be the fuel to keep us going. Thank you. Thank you so much for those remarks. And Gustavo, the floor is yours. Once again, Daniel, congratulations. Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Rosas. Thank you to the Pan American Health Organization. We would like to also congratulate the people that have been NTD 2026. And we also like to echo Daniel Dorado's colleague, who is also a friend and whose father we very much appreciate. Okay, let's move on to the next block in this webinar that has to do with accountability from the tobacco company as well as the legislative responses across the region on nicotine pouches. To introduce this block, I would like to call Patricia Sosa, Associate Vice President in Tobacco Free Kids. Patricia, go ahead. Thank you, Gustavo. And congratulations to all the awardees and especially Daniel. Daniel, you highlighted the relationship. Can imagine how much I miss him, how big he was in my career. So you honor his legacy. And now I would like to introduce the second session that has to do with two groups that mobilized the Action in the Region. Ms. Severini, Legal Coordinator for Latin America in Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids. She will talk about marketing and legislative strategies to close the legal gaps that the industry um, takes advantage of. Daniel Dorado from Corporate Accountability brings us, we'll talk about Make Big Tobacco Pay. Let me remind you that you can only send questions in writing using the Q&A icon, and we will address those at the end. Thank you. Janela, go ahead. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you, Daniel. Pouches, but thank you and congratulations to all of the awardees. Thank you, Patricia, Vital, and Pajo. The idea for my presentation is to talk about these new nicotine or not so new nicotine products that have been in the market for a while but are being disseminated widely throughout the Americas. I'm talking about nicotine pouches. This presentation is part of is put together from the tobacco campaign for tobacco free kids. We have several teams that are researching the use of these nicotine pouches, how they're being regulated, as well as the best practices in alignment with WHO recommendations. So my presentation will focus on the global market where these products them like we saw during the previous presentation, they use a lot of strategies. And finally, I'm talking about global and regional regulations with some examples in our region. In terms of the global market, very briefly, this is a rapidly expanding market. They are available in over 50 countries. That is the estimated global availability. And in terms of the market share, it continues to grow. We have two main players that are selling these, and they are the usual suspects. On the one hand, we have Philip Morris International, which is a marketing scene, which is their nicotine pouches. I'm sure you've seen them in our countries. In terms of farm, I am an attorney and a communicator. I'm not a physician, but we have several physicians in the region that specialize in this that can talk about this in further detail. And we also have plenty of resources that we will share with you on the chat. Very briefly, these nicotine pouches are not proven cessation tools, and that is very important. Their impact in health highly addictive. They represent an increase in cardiovascular um, risks. They start using these pouches and then they move on to traditional cigarettes or e-cigarettes. And also, since these are newly introduced products, evidence is being developed as they appear in the market. So we don't know yet how much worse they can be. But the evidence that we have so far is says that they are harmful, they are addictive, and they are not a cessation tool. How does the industry present these? Well, they present it with this completely fake damage control image, and they aggressively market them among the youth. They show you the problem is now selling you a fake solution. This is not a damage control strategy. This is a commercial strategy by the tobacco industry. This is a marketing strategy to position their products in the market. We have advertising of a highly addictive product that, according to the tobacco industry, in theory, is not targeting the youth or non-smokers. This is what the industry says on their websites if you go and see what they say. Now, let's see how they market these. Well, they market these with an aspirational lifestyle. So it's Coke. Well, Zen is part of my story. I'm going for the good thing among music and friends. Now, the tactics that have been used are aggressively present in the social media. It's an aspirational lifestyle, and they're saying that you can use these products where you're not allowed to smoke. So I said, okay, if you cannot smoke or vape, then you can use these nicotine pouches. They highlight the fact that they are tobacco effect, and they also have appealing flavors to attract young people. They are all over. They are on social media posts. They are in sports events and music concerts. They are being promoted absolutely everywhere. So if you go see their social media, look for Velo, look for Zin, and you will see advertising everywhere. In Colombia, for example, they were sponsoring um, concert. We also have this festival in Lima that was sponsored by these Velo products, where they are handed out for free. There is advertising in all over the event. Argentina in Lollapalooza. We also saw Zen, same thing in Mexico. They were being shown in the different sale outlets there everywhere. So we addressing this issue. According to information we have in campaign for tobacco-free kids, we have a legal unit that is looking at how these products are being regulated. According to our monitoring, we have found that over 50 countries have specific regulation that the policies cover total ban all the way through regulating on packaging, design, ingredients, flavors, etc. As the most as part of the most prevalent measures is a ban on appealing packaging and also issuing health warnings. We have some regulation examples here in the region. These are just a few, but there are countries that have already started including nicotine pouches as part of their Argentina have already included these in their legislation, and there are other countries such as Mexico that has only increased taxes, but that has no additional regulation on the product. So we wonder what can we do, especially for those countries that haven't regulated the use of these products. What is the Framework Convention? The Framework Convention is very clear. It has Article 5.2b, which says that countries are required to develop legislative, executive, or other types of measures to prevent and reduce addiction to nicotine. So the obligation the government has is extremely clear. So what can governments do? They can either ban their marketing or restrict it. That is to say, regulate sales to apply the entire range of measures that are included in our framework convention because we know they work on highly addictive products, including nicotine pouches, which means health warnings, banned publicity, also ban the false advertising. And what can we do in the meantime if we're working on a bill, for example? In the meantime, we can take all the necessary actions with whatever legislation you currently have to limit access to these highly harmful and addictive products, such as to limit their appeal, limit the use among children and adolescents, do surveillance on the use of these products, and finally inform the public on the toxicity and addiction risks these resources on the chat. And now I will give the floor to my colleague, Daniel Dorado, who's going to talk a little bit about what corporate accountability is doing this week in order to make big tobacco pay. Thank you. Thank you, Jane, for all of this background. And we'll try to follow up on this issue that you're describing and how it can be addressed from some other provisions in the Framework Convention, such as Article 19. Now, if we move on to the next slide, please. Just to reflect, because Janet already gave us enough background information on how the industry is using their strategy appealing and to send messages such as smoking is cool and some other messages. If I had to summarize with my entire presentation, it would be through this slide. On the one hand, you can see one of the questions that were asked at the Philip Morris International Shareholders Meeting in 2018, where basically the Philip Morris CEO is asked, well, when are you going to stop marketing these cigarettes? Because that's the main message they're saying, to highlight that they're doing this transition and that they will step away from and that they will give or present these responses like, I don't have extraterrestrial powers to give that answer. Now, the image on the right shows a very current picture of my country, Colombia, where you can see the perfect storm, like my colleague Jaime always says. We have traditional tobacco products, cigarettes, at the sales outlet together with nicotine pouches, e-cigarettes, and heated tobacco products. So we can see that cigarettes continue to be their main business to, next one please, continue adding to the issue because they are, of course, attracting many more users who, like Diana very well said, we're talking about an industry that yearly it makes about $800 billion. These are earnings neither Google or Meta combined can reach that level. And the niche is dominated by four main tobacco corporations. So imagine how profitable this business is. But also think about the impact it has on the environment and human rights, etc. Next one, please. Here is where we have one of the calls we're making. Maybe the main answer or response to this issue is the cross-cutting implementation of the framework. But there's something that we are pushing for in corporate accountability with all of the other organizations that you see listed at the bottom of the screen is the call to make big tobacco pay. this past Monday, June 1st, on International Day of Children and Adolescents, but also to remember World No Tobacco Day, which happened on Sunday. We submitted this week of Make Big Tobacco Pay pilot strategy with 5 countries around the world. In some of them, they are already implementing Article 19 of the Framework Convention that has to do with the liability the tobacco industry has, as well as other accountability measures. And six countries have joined this: Brazil, Mexico, and the US in our region, then Ghana, Nigeria in Africa, and the Philippines in Southeast Asia. So throughout this entire week, these 6 countries are going to be taking call to action to governments because of a litigation that started in 2019. For example, in Brazil, to recover health costs, also litigation to recover the environmental cost in the United States, in the city of Baltimore, but also other countries where these legal efforts are in an exploratory stage, such as Philippines and Mexico, but where they have highlighted that they want to find options to urge their governments to study this. A litigation in Africa that has been ongoing for over 10 years with no progress done because of tobacco industry interference. And finally, what is the civil society doing, and what is this campaign looking to highlight? Well, for 2 years, we have been promoting and incentivizing a petition that has been included in the COP 10 and 11. This petition has over 40,000 signatures from around the world, where basically we called member states to continue working on implementing this specific article. COP 10 and COP 11 have witnessed this, especially COP 11, which adopted a report from the group of experts that includes several recommendations as to how member states and non-member states criminal liability, human rights issues, etc. And one more, all of these activities will be happening through Friday. Here on the chat, you will see the resources if you're interested in any specific activity. We will also include resources related to how to link the 5.3 article to action, because accountability is about that. It's not just about blocking the areas where industry wants to interfere, but also supplement with action when the industry is asked to reinstate the health costs that were incurred because of their product use. The floor is you. Thank you for tobacco participants that have joined this webinar. So thank you so much to every single one of you. We will now move on to the final block before moving on to questions from the audience. And the next presentation will combine scientific evidence and technology, the use of artificial intelligence to monitor industry tactics, especially in marketing nicotine pouches. This section will be monitoring by Jorge Vega from Vital Strategies, and the focal point for tobacco industry in Latin America. The scientific evidence that is developed, and Jorge will talk about specifically AI, to talk about the strategies that were identified in Mexico, which will enable us to do a regional projection, and then Jorge Eric Ochoa will share findings from the report supported by Valter Strategies Program on nicotine pouches. Go ahead. Thank you so much, Gustavo. We want to share an experience that has been particularly innovating for vital strategies. Let me begin by highlighting something very important as funders. This was the first grant in all of Vital Strategies portfolio, including all of our programs outside of tobacco control, that included the use it meant a significant change because we didn't use a traditional methodology, but rather a need to use different ways of analyzing reality. This was not a project where we had all the responses from the very beginning. Rather, it was a process. Next one. This helps me introduce Eric's portion of the presentation. The But there's something even more important that I would like to highlight, and that is that AI did not replace human analysis, but rather it helped process large volumes of information, identify patterns, and identify findings. But everything was reviewed, validated by public health. So, this balance between technology and human analysis is one of the biggest findings we've had. Even though this was done in Mexico, what we started to see was even more far reaching, and that is the delivery of Latin America, of nicotine products in Latin America with marketing strategies that are harder and harder to trace. So, this technology enables us to understand changes better and do better analysis. So, from our point of view in Vital, this big project worked as a way to see how AI can support the analysis of complex phenomena in public health. Having said this, the most important thing is not what we learned as funders, but rather the evidence we created. And that is why now I would like to give the floor to Salud Justa to my colleague and friend Eric, who's going to talk about the main findings from this research process. You will see the outcome of a rigorous, innovative, and highly relevant process for Mexico and for Latin America. Go ahead, Eric. I will now share my presentation. I'm going to talk about marketing strategies the industry uses for nicotine pouches. This is a project and this is just a snapshot. I will give you the link in the comment section for you to read later. But here we review the marketing strategies the industry used for nicotine pouches. So we included all of those findings in a study and then we presented our conclusions. We have heard quite a bit on nicotine pouches, so all I'm going to say is that they are all over Mexico since 2014 with a total regulatory for their marketing and sales, and they were included in the excise task in January of this year. So at least we have a legal tax for them. There are several components, I mean characteristics. They are discrete, apparently harmless, but they can be up to 30 times more harmful than traditional cigarettes. We have to see the concentration of nicotine in each pouch. In Mexico, we see up to 8 milligrams per, but we know that via internet in Mexico, you can get pouches that have up to 80 milligrams. Next one. These are the 5 areas of analysis, and on each one of these, we have a specific report. We use And in our report, you can see what tools were used in each one of these five areas of analysis. Let me tell you that for us, it was very important to do traceability and to see how all these aspects create a system that has been designed for addiction in the sense of how these nicotine pouches are presented in the outlets. They are close to like the candy aisle, and consistently we see a strategy to and also a very specific strategy is used in social media. We analyze YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, and also websites. There are specific platforms to market these nicotine pouches. Something very important that we found on those websites is that they are focused on attracting users. And in attracting these users, we see that they have a different strategy from the one they use for e-cigarettes, where apparently they wanted to appeal to users that wanted to switch from traditional cigarettes to e-cigarettes. This is not the case. Here, their strategy is to attract new users. There are promotions, there are sales, there are we need to analyze all this. And then in terms of the physical packaging, we see their design and color and lack of warnings about how harmful they can be for their health, that they are addictive. All of that comes up is a system designed to appeal to children and adolescents. Now, what did we find? Well, aggressive digital marketing strategies. There's an increase in the use of nicotine pouches that is linked to digital marketing strategies. Tobacco companies use social media influencers and online advertising on their social media posts. They even use minors because some of them may be considered minors because they're between 18 and 22. Uh, Smoke-free products are being promoted in a way of creating a false sense of security that can be used anywhere. There are highly attractive flavors, mint, tropical fruit, watermelon, coffee, caramel. So there's a wide range of very appealing flavors, discrete size. It can be very easily hidden. For example, in schools, they have also attractive colors, celebrities, and also they use influencers. We realize that we're pretty much losing the battle on Instagram. We have a pretty unfair battle on YouTube, and it's kind of 50-50 in Facebook. I'm What are the risks inherent to these marketing strategies? Addiction among minors, very high doses. Like I told you, on the market, they can in any market they can be found anywhere up to 8 milligrams or below. Zin goes up to 6 milligram. There's a moderate urban use, especially what we started to see in the clinics where they deal with cessation is that there's use not only of cigarettes, e-cigarettes, but also after doing the thematic analysis over an entire year and using only AI tools, um, we saw that, that would have been impossible without AI assistance, but we also, of course, had human reviews to validate all of the findings. Now, what are our takeaways or conclusion? Well, we need to pay attention because the industry is taking advantage of legal voids. There is invisibility and simulated control among these products, digital manipulation, hidden sponsoring in all kinds of events. So our recommendation are strict regulation, strategic litigation, educational mobilization, corporate pressure, and ongoing surveillance. So civil society has to have the necessary communication channels so that we can have the right action. Thank you so much, Eric, and thank you so much, Jorge, for your presentation. And I'm sure that we have to do our best because there are new and emerging challenges, and we need to develop new strategies to counter these marketing strategies that tobacco industry to join us for the 10 additional minutes to move on to the Q&A section. We want to say that we have one question by a participant. What do you recommend to use among adolescents to prevent use of nicotine pouches? We will be addressing the question in writing. And now I have another question for Zanella that has to do with your presentation on legislation and legal voids. The question is, what are the main legal voids or gaps that the tobacco industry or new regulatory frameworks include to prevent regulation to be from being one step behind the strategies this industry uses? Thank you, Gustavo, and thank you everyone for your questions. We'll be answering, like Gustavo said on the chat. If I need to talk about something specific, is advertising. As you can see, and you saw in my presentation, the industry is marketing these products very aggressively, not only on social media, but also in sales outlets as well as in-person concerts and events. This is a campaign where they try to uh, address this. For example, they pouches or they see you down the street and they give you free samples. So these are very aggressive marketing sales. They are available to children. They are right next to candy bars and some other appealing products. So if there is one thing that all countries must work on is advertising, be it by enforcing existing legislation, because I'm sure a lot of your countries already have laws banning advertising. Few countries have a total ban. The idea would be for to have more and more countries do a total ban, like the Framework Conventions has. But for those countries that do not have a total ban yet, these actions normally, when we have the possibility for industry to advertise, they do it. But I'm sure that none of your countries enable any industry to have such aggressive marketing strategies. So we need to work on enforcing the current advertising legislation and also strengthen it. It's very important to do oversight and to implement what you have and improve what we have. And we need to work on a total ban on the advertising, promotion, and sponsorship, not only of traditional cigarettes, but also tobacco products and nicotine pouches, because behind these products we have the exact same actors. We're talking about Philip Morris International, British American Tobacco, and the other big tobacco companies that have these products on the market and that start advertising one of their products because they find a legal void or they find a loophole in the legislation. And that advertising, directly or indirectly, is also advertising for their other traditional products. And we know the risk advertising has. So the one that was hesitant as to whether or not to start, starts. The one that was hesitant about quitting has a harder time quitting. And the one that's used proven risks that especially appeal to children, adolescents, and youth, it is very important to nip it in the bud. Thank you, Janella, for having such a thorough response on the challenge that we have in terms of regulatory voids. I have a question for Daniel. I don't know if you can answer in like 1 minute. What would it mean for governments in the Latin American government to go from a purely regulatory approach to true corporate accountability? I will appreciate your brevity. Would be to comprehensively implement the Framework Convention actions. Like I said in my presentation, Article 5.3 is the backbone of the Framework Convention, but it supplements all of the other measures. That accountability is key. We need to make the industry liable, but we also need to move with like the empower um, toolkit. But for example, display at outlets, we need to have comprehensive regulation on this topic because, like we said, this is creating the perfect storm, not only for traditional products, but also for emerging products because they make them even more appealing to the young population. So this is one of the most effective. That's it. Of course, going to accountability and liability is moving on to a different dimension. Okay, we're now going to close. Thank you so much to Diana, Rosa, Daniel, Patricia, Janet, Jorge, Eric. This discussion confirms that the Latin American region has the evidence, strategy, and determination to act. World No Tobacco Day 2026 is not just a day of commemoration. It is a call to close the gaps that the industry continues to exploit. We need to know that the business model tobacco industry has focuses on developing addiction, attracting new users, and make addiction a lifelong issue. Promoting the so-called damage control, promoting uh, e-cigarettes, tobacco products, and nicotine pouches. This is the same to be an option for less harmful options. But this is a facade. Thank you so much for joining us today. The recording of this webinar and the presentation materials will be available soon. Thank you all for joining us, and we see you next time.